Okay, so this video is the second part to Unit 3, Lesson 13. We're going to start with exercise 8. So we've already had the bee follow the mouse. This time we're going to make the bee fly around wherever the mouse position is. So as you see, it's always within 50 pixels either to the left or the right, and higher or lower than the mouse position. So we're going to add a random amount between -50 and 50 to both the x position and to the y position of the mouse. So if we look in our code here, we've got the variable for the mouse created, the bee animation is set to the bee, then we've got our draw function which draws the background, and then we've got the bee.x equals world mouse.x, and then we need to add, so we need to say plus a random number between -50 and 50, so that if the mouse is here, the x position will be somewhere within 50 pixels on either side. Easiest way to do this is probably just to click show text, since we already have the code here, b.x equals world.mousex, and then we're going to, in between the x and the semicolon, we're going to say plus random number. If you start typing it in, it'll go ahead and bring up a choice, and notice the n is capitalized on this. That is very important. So random number, and then we put our two values, -50, 50. So it's going to add a number between -50 to 50 to wherever the world.mousex is. Wherever your mouse is positioned, it's going to add a random number between those two. Now we're going to do the same thing for the y. b.y equals worldmouse.y plus a random number between -50 and 50. And then if I go ahead and hit show blocks again, we can go back to our blocks if you're used to those. And it just shows it up in there like that. So let's go ahead and run it. And if I bring my mouse around, the bee's kind of jumping around between 50 pixels on either side and above and below where my mouse is. So that worked perfectly. We'll go ahead and hit finish and move to the next section. So in exercise 9, talks about we've used key down as a way to let users control the programs, but that's just one way to take input, and that's also one of many ways to detect key presses. So depending on how we want to react to a key press, there are a few other blocks we might want to use. So let's go ahead and read the program and predict what we think will happen when you press the up, down, left, and right arrows. So let's go ahead and see. We've got a draw function. Sets a background to white, has text aligned to the center, the text size is 40, and the text is key down up. So that looks a little interesting compared to what we've done before. Okay, so text is taking this value of key down up. So whether or not up is pressed, okay, if up is pressed, then it's going to say the value here. So is it true or false? And it's going to put that at 0, 0, 400, 100. So I'm going to say it's going to say whether or not it's going to say true or false, and then text, this exclamation point, key down. So that's interesting as well. We've got text key went down or key went up. So let's say if the key is pressed, it's going to say true. If the down key is not pressed, it's going to say true. If key went down, if the left went down, it's going to say true. And if the right went up, it's going to say true. So I'm going to say it will say true if the key condition is true and false otherwise. So let's try it. Let's try it. We've got these 4 conditions here. So I'm going to run it. We've got false, false, true, false. So what happens when I press the up arrow? It becomes true, and then when I let go, it becomes false. The second one here, key down, down. So if down is pressed, it says false. But if down is not pressed, it says true. So this exclamation point actually means it's not true. Okay? So if key down, down, so if down is not being pressed, it's going to say true. But if down is pressed, then this would be false. So it will say false when I press down. Okay, key went down left. So let's have a look at that. If I press left, it only shows up real quick as true. You might not be able to see that. Same with right. It only goes, even if I hold it down, it only just for a split second says true and then goes back to false. So if the key went down, it will say that. If it went down at a certain point, it'll say true really quick and then it'll pop back to false. So let's go ahead and move to the next one. Okay, so for this exercise, we're going to try to find out where each of these go, how the description matches with each of these blocks. So first one we say is true only once when the key is pressed. So I'm guessing that's probably key went down. So let's put that in there. I'm going to move this. Key went down. Okay, is true only once when the key is released. So key went up. If the key gets released, that should be key went up. And the third one is true the whole time the key is being pressed or held down. Key down. Okay, so as long as the key is being pressed, it will use this key down to determine that. So let's go ahead and submit. Okay, so for the next one, exercise 11, we want to work with the mouse. Similar to key down, we've got an option that's mouse down that checks whether the left or right mouse button is being pressed. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this. So this program drops a balloon down the screen, and we're going to program the mouse button to raise the balloon back up when it's clicked. So we need to add an if-else statement that checks for mouse down. And let's go ahead and do that. Remember, in the control menus where we're going to find those, we have a regular if statement and then an if-else down here. So we're going to put the if-else statement before we draw our sprites. So we're going to say, if the mouse is down, so we've got mouse down, if mouse down, and we're going to leave it at left button. Then we'll go to the sprites menu, and we're going to say if mouse went down, then the sprite.y position is going to decrease, because as we know, as we move up here, the y position is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the sprite name is balloon, so we need to change that here. Balloon.y equals balloon.y minus 1. Okay, so let's see how that works here. If we run this and then we press the mouse, it's stopping. Okay, so it's not moving up, but it's not moving down either. So the reason for that is it's already got here saying the balloon Y is increasing, so it's already moving down, but then if we press the mouse, then it's going to move up at the same rate it's moving down. So essentially it's standing still. So we need to figure out a way to fix that. If we look here at the hint, it says you need to move the code that drops the balloon for this to work. So let's go ahead and grab this purple code here, this full block, and move it down here. So into the if-else statement. So now it's saying if the mouse down is the left button, so if left is being pressed on your mouse, then your balloon.y equals balloon.y minus 1. So the balloon should move up. Else, or otherwise, the balloon should be moving down. Balloon.y equals balloon.y plus 1. So if we run it now, it's moving down. I click, it moves up. I let go, it moves down. I click on the left mouse, it moves up. So that's perfect. Let's go ahead and finish. And move to the next one. Okay, a couple more left. Okay, exercise 12, responding to a single click. So earlier we learned that key went down and key went up can be used to respond to a key press a single time. Kind of like when we were pressing left and right and it was just flashing really quick from false to true and then went back to false. So the blocks mouse went up and mouse went down allow you to do that same thing for the mouse to see if it was clicked. So let's make a simple game that counts how many times you've clicked. We already have a variable clicks here, var clicks equals 0, that tracks how many times the users clicked. So we need to add a conditional that checks if the mouse went down, and inside the conditional we need to add to the clicks variable each time it gets clicked. So we need to add it from 0, add extra numbers to it each time. So let's go ahead and try that. So we've got our if statement in the control section. So if mouse went down, So we go to world, mouse went down, and it's the left button that we're checking if the left button went down. Then we want the clicks to become clicks plus 1. So we can go ahead and say x equals. Now we change this x to clicks because the clicks is the name of our variable. So if the left button went down, so every time you press the left button, this is going to happen. If left button went down, the clicks is going to become clicks plus 1. So it starts at 0, you press it once, it becomes 0 plus 1. So now it's 1. You press the mouse again, it becomes 2. Press it again, it becomes 3. So let's go ahead and try that. Click, 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 click. So every time I click, it adds 1 to the amount of clicks. And then it shows text, which is, the text is actually the number of clicks that you did. So that works. Let's go ahead and hit finish. And last one, exercise 13. We can also use Boolean expressions, so expressions that evaluate to true or false, to see if the mouse is moved. The mouse did move block will return false if the mouse is still, but it will say true if the mouse has been moving. So right now we've got the salt shaker sprite. If we run this, we've got the sprite here. You'll need to use the mouse did move so that we can shake the salt by moving the mouse back and forth. Alright, so we need a conditional that checks if the mouse did move. So right here inside our draw function, we're going to go to our control menu. We're going to say if, and put it below here, if mouse did move. So we'll go to world, scroll down, mouse did move. Alright, if mouse did move, then we want the salt.rotation to change. So if we come over here to sprites, go to sprite.rotation, bring it in here, make sure you change the name to salt so it matches, and then we can go ahead and put in the rotation amount. So let's go to math and let's go to the plus operator, put it in here. So we have salt.rotation equals, and let's go back to sprite.rotation again and say sprite.rotation, and let's make it salt plus, and then if we go to math, we can find a random number here plus a random number between, now how many degrees we wanted to change? Do we want to change 45, 90, let's just say maybe 45. So between negative 45 to the left and 45 to the right. Okay, you could do a smaller number, a larger number, depending on how much you want it to rotate. So let's see if that works. So we run it, and as I move it, it rotates. Okay, and so there is a challenge you can do if you like. Can you keep track of how many times the mouse did move, shakes the salt, and then rotate it right side up after 100 shakes? If you want to try that, you can go ahead and do that as well. We're kind of combining what you learned from the previous one. But just to kind of get a head start on that, if you want to do that extra part, you can go ahead and set another variable. Where's our variables? And you can say var shakes, or whatever you want to call it, equals 0, started at 0, and then you can go ahead and use it down here and say if mouse did move, we're going to rotate it like we did, and then we're going to say shakes equals shakes plus 1. Alright, so that ups the count of the shakes. Now the last part you need to do is go ahead and make the salt stand up straight after 100 shakes, and I'll leave you to do that since my time is running short.